Alright folks, how are you doing? This is the second part of our spaceship. We're going to make it fly through a warp tunnel and arrive at a planet. Um, this one may be a little long. We'll see. If I really feel it's running over long, maybe I'll just stop it and split it into two, but more than likely I'll just plow on to the end and hopefully you'll be able to stick with me on that. So, without further ado, let's get cracking. The first thing we need to do is to bring in our spaceship model. So I could open the spaceship file that I had the last day, but I've never shown you how to bring a model from another Blender file into a new Blender file or an existing second Blender file. And that's pretty easy to do actually. So let's just have a look at how you do that. Before I do that, I'm just going to get rid of the default cube in the scene. Then I'm going to go up to file. Oh, hang on. Let's get my old friend's screencast keys up and running before we go too far. Okay, cool. So I'm going to go to the file and I'm going to use this append command up here, and that allows us to take objects and materials and anything we want really from another Blender file and import it into the one we're currently working on. So I'm going to hit append and I'm going to navigate to where I store the spaceship from last week, and I'm going to append that. When I hit append though, it doesn't immediately throw the whole file in. It then brings up options. I have this showing as thumbnails. It may look like that for you. That's just a view option. Probably looks like this by default, so I'll just switch it. So if you want to find the spaceship, go into object, and then you can see the objects listed. I'm going to choose the spaceship object and hit append, and there's my spaceship from the last day. It's currently got smooth shading on, and I think actually for this I'm going to swap that back to um, flat shading. I think I want that kind of low poly look. Okay, cool. So that's our spaceship. So we brought our spaceship in from the other file. It's going to switch to viewport shading just so we can check them. Yep, materials look good. Everything looks nice. All right, excellent. So I want to build a warp tunnel for this spaceship to fly through, and I want to arrive at a planet on the far end. So the first thing we're going to do is start with our spaceship tunnel, with our warp tunnel. Actually, though, we could do this either way, but I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this spaceship and I'm just going to scale it down. So I'm going to go scale 0.1. I'm just going to make it smaller, scaled to a tenth of its size, so S.1, and that's just going to make it easier to work with for us now because we won't have to make everything else so big. All right, so let's put on X-ray mode just so we can see what we're going to do next, and let's add in a new cylinder, mesh cylinder. Nice. Right. Let's just switch that to smooth shading and then pop into edit mode. All right. I can't really see the spaceship in there, which I thought that I would. I thought that I gotta go back to solid. Yeah. All right. Back to solid for the moment. Didn't realize that X-ray didn't work in that one. Anyway, now we can see the spaceship. I just wanted for size reference. Okay, so let's rotate the cylinder over 90 degrees around the red x-axis. So let's RX 90 to rotate that over 90 degrees. And let's just switch here to face select mode. I want to just get rid of that end, those two end caps. Just want to get rid of both of those. Select both of them. So click on them, shift, click on the second one, and then X and faces. Just want to leave that cylinder open, completely open. Okay, cool. Size is not too bad around the spaceship. Maybe we'll make it a little bit bigger, but it's pretty good. So let's hit A to select all of the cylinder. Yeah, let's just make it twice as wide around. So I'm going to go S2 to scale it twice. Yeah, that's going to be nice. And then let me just scale it along the y-axis here. So I'm not sure how much. Let me try 10 times first. SY 10. No, that's not going to be enough yet. I think it's not long enough. So I'll scale it twice again. I'll scale it another 2 times. SY2. Yeah, that's good. That's going to be good, I think. So there's our little spaceship, and the tunnel is a nice length now. All right, cool. So that's our little tunnel. Let's just go back into object mode. I'm going to hit tab to do that, and I'm going to call this warp tunnel. All right, cool. Now, we want the spaceship to fly down this tunnel, and we also want a camera to fly down the tunnel as well and follow it. Actually, we're going to be fancy. We're going to start the camera in the tunnel, just around here where the mouse pointer is, and the spaceship's going to start just outside, and as it flies, the camera's going to be looking at the front of the spaceship and then turn a bit as it goes past and then fly after it until it flies out the end. So that's the plan. So we're going to put in a path for the camera and the spaceship to follow. So let's look at doing that now. Let's go add and curve and path. And it's quite small actually, so it's going to be right here in the middle. So just might be easier in this case just to just hide the spaceship for a minute. And I'm still zooming. Can't even see it. Hang on, let's do view, frame selected. All right, so it's being hidden by the tunnel actually. Let's go to wireframe mode. Maybe then we'll be able to see it. Still can't see it. Oh wait, sorry. In edit mode I can see it. So I've tabbed into edit mode there. I was confusing myself. Okay, there it is. Now I can see it. It's that yellow line. All right, so it's turned the wrong way, so we're going to want to rotate it around Z 90 degrees. So we're in edit mode now, so let's do OR Z 90 just to line it up. And then we just want to scale it so it sticks out the end of the tunnel, both ends a bit. So let's do scale Y, SY, and then just drag it till it's just, you see the ends pop out either side. All right, cool. So there's our path that we've made right through the center. We're going to get things to follow that path. All right, so how do we make something follow along that path? Well, we do that with an object constraint. So let's first of all build, add a new empty. So I'm going to go add empty plane axis, and I'm going to call it Spaceship Rig. You don't need to add this empty strictly. You could do what I'm going to do next on the spaceship itself, but having the Spaceship Rig be the thing that follows the path, that means we could then offset the spaceship a little bit or animate the spaceship separately, and it would give us a bit more flexibility what we do with the spaceship afterwards. So that's our Spaceship Rig. So let's tell it now that it's got an object constraint that we want it to follow that path. So over here on the side, go to this object constraint properties panel and look for follow path and add that in. And it's going to want to you to tell it what path. So click there and then select your path. And if we look now at where that object has now ended up, you'll see that it's all the way over there. It's at the end. And as we change this offset value, for reasons I don't understand, this value goes minus. So it goes between 0 and minus 100 up and down the path. But as I change that value, you can see it slides between both ends of the path. So that's cool. So let's take our spaceship now, make it visible again, and let's make it a child of that spaceship rig. So click it here, hold down the shift key, and then drop it on spaceship rig. Right, I did that. I should have done that before I set the constraint on Spaceship Rig, because Spaceship is now not centered on this, which it should be. So I'm just going to go Control Z and undo that so the spaceship is not paired with that anymore. I'm just going to take our constraint off of the rig for a second. Just delete it by hitting the X button. Drag the spaceship back over. And now I'm going to put this the follow path constraint back on. There we go. So that's cool, except our spaceship is facing the wrong way because this is the start position. So I'm just going to take our spaceship and I'm going to OR Z 180 just to turn it around. There we go. That's cool. All right. So let's quickly animate that flying down the tunnel. So I'm just going to pull up the timeline here a little bit, and I'm going to select the spaceship rig, and we're already on frame 0 here, so I'm just going to go over to offset here and just hit I, just to make that a keyframe. You can see the little keyframe symbol has appeared, and I'm going to drag this all the way to the end to 250. I'm going to set this to -100, which is the end, and again I'm going to hit I on that. You see it changes color to specify that that's where it should be at the end. So now as you drag the timeline, the spaceship itself flies up and down the tunnel. And we can hit play there on the animation just to see it actually happening. All right, not too bad. Let's take our camera in the scene. Actually, for starters, there's a light in the scene, but I don't like it. I'm going to put a sunlight in. So I'm just going to hit X on that, select that light, and just get rid of it for now. We're going to put a sunlight in a bit, but I'm just going to clear it away for now. Okay, so let's take the camera that we have and we want to put it back at the center. So one of the ways you can do that, a quick way to do it, is G is move and R is rotate. Excuse me. And in Blender, a lot of the time, Alt and something means undo it or reset it. So in fact, Alt G and Alt R will reset the position and rotation back to 0. Another way you can do it is just go into this object properties panel here and just 0 all of those values as well. That's the same thing, but it's just Alt G, Alt R is the quick way to do it. So we've got our camera there now, back at the origin. So we're going to add another empty, and we're going to call this one Camera Rig. Excuse me. And let's parent our camera to that. So drag it here, holding the shift down, and drop it over Camera Rig. And we want our camera to be, we want our camera to look at the spaceship all the time. So actually we can set another object constraint for that. So let's pick our camera here. Now this might take me a little bit of trial and error to get it right. But if it's right, the camera will be pointing back this way. This yellow arrow on the camera is what the camera considers to be up. So if this is working properly, we'll expect to see the camera pointing back along the y-axis with the yellow triangle on the top. So let's give it a go. So I'm going to add a new constraint. This one's called track to, and we want to track to the spaceship. And we want up for a camera is Y. That's one of the things that's confusing. And we want this then to be -Z. There we go. So Y and -Z for this camera. And now the camera points at the spaceship. Let's just test that and drag the timeline along here so that as the spaceship goes past the camera, yes, you can see the camera flips around to follow it. Alright, so the camera is now always going to watch the spaceship, which is cool. Okay, so let's take that camera rig and let's also put a constraint on it to follow to follow the path. And let's pick our NURBS path as well. Alright, cool. Except we're going to want to not have it start right at the beginning, but let's just move it into the tunnel a little bit. about there. Let's say about minus 10, just about there to start out with. And let's put a keyframe in for that at frame 1. So I, sorry folks, I'm losing my voice here a bit. And as what we're going to do is just as the spaceship moves maybe just past it, we're going to put another keyframe in there. So that's frame 60 at the same minus 10, but then so it'll stay at the same spot there for those first 60 frames. It'll just stay in that same spot, but then by 250 we're going to move it out to maybe say minus 90, so that it's all the way to the other end. All right, let's just have a look at that again. Just come in from the side maybe, and we'll watch. So the camera stays put, stays put, stays put, stays put until the spaceship flies by and flies on a little bit, and then no, I forgot to set the keyframe for the end. Sorry, let's try that again. Minus 90. I forgot to hit I. Minus 90, and hit I. Minus 90. Enter, and then I. There we go. That's the keyframe. So let's watch again. So the spaceship moves past the camera. The camera stays still and then starts to fly after the. And actually, that minus 90 probably isn't quite close enough. We'll come a bit closer. Minus 94. That looks pretty good. Okay, so hit I on that just to set that as the keyframe. So let's go to the camera view here by switching this on. And let's just see what that looks like. So I'm going to hit space and just follow. So the camera okay, it doesn't look great right now. And the reason for that is twofold. One is that first of all, we've got no textures, so it's kind of hard to tell that you're flying down the tunnel, but that's okay, we'll fix that soon. But the other is that the camera is dead level with the spaceship, so it just kind of flies right into it. So it would be nice if we just move the camera a little bit over to the side and up a little bit, so that we're not just, it doesn't feel like it's crashing into us. So that's easy to do. Let's just take the camera, select the camera here on the side, and we're just going to just GX to move it a little bit in X. Hang on, I want to be back at frame 1. Oh yeah, because it's X-rays on, it's confusing. It looked like it was backwards. So let's say again, so GX just to move the camera over a bit, and GZ to move it up a bit. Just a bit. Now let's go back to the camera view and let's just preview that. That looks better. The spaceship flies past us, but we're not sort of right in its path. Okay, that looks better. There's still a few things to fix, but we're getting there. Let's start to put a texture on the tunnel. That's going to make it look a lot more interesting. So let's select our warp tunnel here and go to the material properties panel and create a new material, which we'll also call warp tunnel. All right, and I'll go to the UV editing tab, and here in the materials panel, I'm going to select an image texture, and then I'm going to open. So I've made an image that is a kind of a space image that I did by manipulating just a nice astronomy photo I found on the internet, and I'm going to provide a link to it in the CoderDojo post, and also I'm going to put a link to it under the YouTube page, so you can find it either way. Here, it's called Space PNG, and I'm going to open it up now. So I want to map this nicely to this cylinder. So I'm just going to make sure, first of all, this is in Viewport Shading, so we can kind of see the result. So I'm going to select all on this over on the image editing side, A, and I want to scale it so that it I want to scale it so that it fits the image better. So I think it's probably only half the size. So I'm just going to scale Y twice. So SY2. And then I'm going to GY to move it down until it's just overlapping pretty well. That's pretty good. Um, let's have a look at that on from the inside. It's not looking too bad. Now one thing is there's kind of an ugly seam on the side of these, on left and right side of this image. We can't see it now, but when you see it, when the animation's playing, it won't look great. So let's just scale X, and we'll just bring that back just to kind of about there. See where that kind of white, see this kind of white band is? Just kind of just inside that really. Scale X, and it's going to look nicer for having done that. Okay. All right, so that is our texture put on our tunnel. It looks pretty good, I hope. Yeah, that looks nice. So let's just pop back quickly to the here and switch to viewport shading, and let's just have a look at that running. Let's go back to the start. Yeah, all right. So at the moment it doesn't feel as dramatic as we want it to feel ultimately, but you know, it's not bad. So let's keep working on it. I'd like to change the background from this completely flat gray to something that looks like stars. So I found a nice cheap trick for putting a kind of a star field look in here. So let's go over to the shading window and do something we haven't done before. Instead of shading an object, we're going to change this to shade the world. And this is what renders the background. This is like a material for the background. And at the moment, all there is this background image or background node feeding into the world. So let's just get rid of that X, delete that one completely. I'm going to have to go to rendered mode over here to actually see the effect of this, by the way. So just flick onto that for a minute. All right, so currently now it's completely black because there's nothing feeding in there. So let's add in a texture node. Let's add a Musgrave texture node in. Just for a second, let's just plug that fact straight into surface. All right, so the Musgrave one looks like this. It's sort of cloudy sort of thing. So if we set a scale on that so that those increase the scale so that we get a lot more kind of small detail, something like that, for example. Okay. Now, what we want to do is just take it so that the brightest bits of this are visible, and everything that's a little bit darker then just goes to black, and the effect of that will be that we get little points of light. So that's actually, it sounds complicated, but it's very easy to do. Let's add a color node in, color ramp, and just drop it so that it's between the two of those, and hopefully it connects. Now, at the moment, that's making no difference to it because the Musgrave texture is already black to white, and this is currently saying convert black to black and white to white and everything in the middle to everything in the middle between black and white. So it hasn't really changed it at all. But if we were to take this one and drag it, now we're saying anything that's not very bright goes to black, and anything that's bright stays white. And that is starting to give us something that's a bit like a starry sky. So I think we need to push the scale a bit more again, just to get it. Let's come back down. Maybe pushing the detail here would help. I'm not sure. No, probably not. I just want to push the scale up, I think, so that we have a lot more little points. Yeah, so let's try that 61 for scale, and then drag that up again. Yeah, that's good. So 60 something for scale, and then depending on where you pick with that slider, you'll have more or less stars, smaller or bigger ones. All right, so it's a really cheap and easy starry sky effect to give us space. So let's go back to the layout. Let's switch for the first time here to rendered view. Let's go to the camera and let's hit play for a second, spacebar. And immediately we can't see anything. All right, so I'm going to go back to, so why didn't that work? Well, it did. It just didn't work the way we expected. So the problem is that twofold. One, first of all, now there's no light in the scene, so there's nothing to light this up, and that's why everything is now dark. So in a way, that's not surprising what's just happened. There's two ways we can fix this. First of all, we can fix this texture so that it's self-lighting. It basically gives off light, and that's going to make it really glow nicely. So let's select the tunnel, go to shading again, and switch back to object view here. And instead of that principled BSDF shader, which is the one we normally use, just select that and just X to get rid of it. And then add a new shader type, just a one that's called an emission shader. And drop that, and then just plug the color in and plug the emission out into surface. And now this glows with the color coming from here. And in fact, we can make it glow more by just increasing that value. So I think a value of about 3 looks pretty nice. So let's go back now to layout, and let's snap to the camera, and let's rewind there by clicking on the back button. And let's go to rendered view, and let's hit play, and let's see what happens. Okay, nice, except there's still nothing to light up our little spaceship. Now, we're going to put a sun. I'm going to switch back to this again so I can see things. So we're going to put a sun in, but the sun still won't be able to light when the spaceship is in the tunnel, because the tunnel is going to block the light from getting in. But let's add the sun anyway for a moment. So I'm going to go add light sun, and there's our sun. It's pointing straight down, so I don't want that. So let's just snap to an end view with Y, and I'm just going to rotate it, or so that it's mostly coming in pretty flat. Not completely flat to the x-axis, but just, a little angle off of it. And then I'm just going to switch to a top view, and again I'm going to just or so that it's at a bit of an angle like that. All right. So that's it. So that's our sun. But our sun is not going to. I know it seems to be inside the tunnel, but if we switch back to rendered view, switch back to camera, you'll see there's a bit of light hitting the spaceship when it's outside the tunnel. Sorry, let me zoom this. Again, when it's outside the tunnel, you can see it coming into the light, which is a bit dim at the moment, but we'll boost that in a bit. But inside the tunnel, that sunlight does not hit. Sun lamps are unusual. It doesn't matter where they are. They're always outside. And so even though it seems to be right in the center of the tunnel now, actually it's only going to light the outside areas. So, all right, it looks kind of cool, but it's not what we want. Let's go back to, let's select our spaceship for a minute. And let's put I want the cursor to be there. We're going to add a special little light just for the spaceship to keep it lit up all the time, even when it goes through the tunnel. Now, this is what we're doing this because we're using the Eevee shader, which is much faster. And I've chosen to do this because it's easier on your machines. If we were to actually switch for a second to the, I'm just going to do this and you can see the effect. I'm going to switch to cycles. Cycles is the ray tracing engine, and it's slow, but it gives very nice results. And it will actually, the emissive light, the emission light coming from the tunnel will actually light up the spaceship in Eevee. Let me just move it into the tunnel there and just jump to follow that. You see that actually it is picking up the blue from the walls. So in cycles it actually will pick up that color, but in Eevee it won't. So we're going to cheat because we're in Eevee, and we're going to do something simple. We're just going to put a little area light in that just sits over the spaceship and lights it up. So having selected the spaceship, let's do a Shift S and cursor to selected. Let's put the cursor right in the center there. I have a feeling my screencast keys are not on anymore. I'll just try. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so I'm going to add in a new light, and this one I'm going to make it an area light. Area light is kind of just a good sort of general light that doesn't particularly look like it's coming from anywhere, not coming from a point or anything. So I'm going to move it up first, G, Z. I'm just going to move it up a little bit above the spaceship. And then I want to move it forward in front of the spaceship a little bit. So I'm going to go G, Y, just to slide it up that way a bit. And then I'm going to rotate it around X, just to point back at the spaceship a little bit, or X. So it does, just until it's pointing back towards the spaceship. And I might just make it a little bit bigger as well, scale, just so it kind of lights a bit more. So that's kind of just a cheat. That's just pretending to be the light coming off the tunnel, but it's not really. Um, if we really wanted to fake it a bit more, we could probably set the color a little bit blue, and that would kind of even more look like the light coming from the tunnel. Yeah, so maybe that's not a bad idea. We just set that the color of this area lamp just a teeny bit, just a nice light blue. So now it looks like the tunnel light. When we're outside the tunnel, we're going to make sure the sun is much stronger. So let's just switch the sun lamp for a minute, and let's bump the sun strength up to maybe 100. So it'll really be bright in comparison. So you won't really see that blue light much until it's inside the tunnel. All right, let's jump back to the camera, rendered view, and let's hit spacebar, and let's see how that looks now. That lamp looks a little bit dim still. Not seeing enough. I'm not seeing enough detail. Let's rewind a bit till we just have a look. Just there, maybe. Oh no, I know what's happening. I know what's happening. Our lamp, our new area lamp, is not following the spaceship because I forgot to make it do that. So it's here, and we want to make it a child of Spaceship Rig. So let's drag it, hold down Shift, and then drop it over Spaceship Rig. Now it moves with it. That's what we needed. It wasn't moving before. Apologies. So let's just move this so it's inside the tunnel a little bit. Let's go and have a look at it. Yes, and you can see now that we can see the spaceship inside the tunnel. Let's go. So our little magic pretend light coming from the tunnel is making the trick. But when we come in and out of the tunnel, you can see this sunlight coming on much stronger as well. Great. Okay. Now, there's another trick that we should do in Eevee. This only applies to Eevee to make the light more dramatic, and that's to turn on bloom, which will really make things like those very bright um, engines really glow at the back. So let's pop over to this panel over here and just tick on bloom. So now you see the bright highlights and bright engines where the sun's hitting the metal of the spaceship and where the engines are lit. They really pop with a sort of a halo effect, and that looks nice. So that's good. It's one of those effects that's easy to overuse, but here it's just really giving the impression of the strong light and this, those engines burning hot. Okay, cool. All right, so now we need a planet to work off of. So let's go. Let's just push the timeline to the end there because I just want to have the spaceship as far along as it can go, and I'm going to switch to a top view. All right, I'm just going to zoom back a bit, and I want to set the cursor to up about here. So just a nice way beyond the end of the tunnel, beyond the spaceship, I want to put a planet in. So if I shift and right click, I'm going to set the 3D cursor to that point. Okay, shift and right click to set 3D cursor. And I'm going to create a UV sphere there. And I want to set the size of it to something bigger. Try 10 maybe? 20. Yeah, 20. That's good. No, maybe a little bit big. 10. Maybe big, but I don't want it to be crazy because it's still going to want to seem like it's a bit away from us. All right. So that's our planet right now. So first of all, let's make it smooth shading. So it looks like a nice smooth ball. And now let's do a quick, simple little planet texture on it to make it look nice. So let's go over to shading, and let's view selected, frame selected, so we can see the planet. All right, cool. I'm going to come back a little bit so I can just have a look. Let's add in, let's call it planet over here, and let's add a new material called planet, and let's do something with the texture here to make this look like a planet. So let's add in a Musgrave texture. Again, same one that we use for the background. Let's just plug it straight in for a second. All right, so it's nice thing about the Musgrave textures, it's going to make kind of continenty looking shapes already. So you can play with the scale. I recommend bumping the detail up very high actually, as high as it'll go. It'll break the edges up more, it'll look more natural. So yeah, by changing the scale, we're going to change the appearance of this. We can dial that in a bit. So again, we're going to want our old friend, the color ramp. So let's drop that in between the two so that it connects them. So now I want earthy type colors here. So I want to, again, we did this in our kind of creating a terrain, if you follow that one. But we're going to go from a kind of a deep ocean to a shallower ocean to a beach to a grass to a hill to a mountain, sort of range of colors, as a range of colors as we go across. So let's just add in, so I want, so deep, I want to add one, maybe 5 or something. 1, 2, 3, 4. I just add in a bunch. That might be enough. Okay, just add in a bunch of those. I'm just going to spread them out more evenly for the moment. Let's start assigning some colors. So this one, click on this first one. So deep ocean is going to be a dark bluey color. And then shallow ocean is going to be a lighter bluey color. And then beach is going to be a nice bright kind of yellowy shade, something like that. And then grass, it's going to be a nice vibrant green. And then maybe transitioning to a darker green. And then finally, maybe just ending at a kind of a browny tone. All right, now by changing these sliders around, you're going to change the amount of any one thing that you've got. So let's just bring this one much closer to keep the sort of the beach narrow. Actually, if we move all of those back, yeah, so just play with this till you get a look that you like. Probably going to bring these all down because I want to make the land bigger and the ocean smaller. And again, don't forget you can play with the scale here till you get a look that you like. Anyway, I'm pretty happy with that. It's kind of vaguely earthy colors, but not earthy shape. All right, let's go back to layout again and let's have a look to see what it looks like. Rewind the timeline, switch to the camera, hit play, and let's have a look. All right, the reason our planet suddenly appeared there is because up until that point, boom, it's outside the draw distance of the camera. So if we have a look at the camera, I don't think we ever want that to happen. We don't want things to pop in. So if I select our camera over here and look down here at the camera panel, just take the clip end plane and just set it out a good bit bigger. So I'm going to go 1000. So now it will never pop in. But we don't want to actually see the planet all the time either. That's not at all the effect that we want. We do kind of want the planet to appear, but under our own terms. So let's see. Let's drag the timeline. So we would like the planet to be visible until you clear the tunnel, and then we'd like it to kind of suddenly kind of thump into view. So let's go back to the start here and let's select our planet. So let's take the planet and I'm just going to again view selected again, frame selected. All right, so at the very start here, let's put in a keyframe that scales our planet down to 0. Just makes it invisible. So let's just switch to the object properties panel here and just change all these down to 0, and then just hit I to put a keyframe in for that. And then let's drag along the timeline till we see our little spaceship appear. So somewhere around here we're going to want to start to expand our planet back to full sized. So I'm going to choose maybe frame 230 there, and I'm going to hit I again to put another keyframe in. So it's still at 0 there, and then by maybe 10 frames later we're going to go 1, 1, 1, 1, and 1, and hit I there to keyframe that. So the planet's going to suddenly, that should look quite cool. All right, it should really look like we've just dropped out the tunnel and it's just appeared in front of us. So let's go back. There's still one major trick that we still haven't done, but I'm just kind of saving that till the end. So let's switch to the camera view. Let's go rewind to the back and let's have a look. We fly through the tunnel. So we can't see the planet, can't see the planet, can't see the planet, can't see the planet, coming out of the warp tunnel. Boom. All right, so I'm really pleased with that. I think that looks quite good. That looks quite good. All right, so that's landing in our planet. Now, one more quick trick I think that we can really do, just very simply improve things, is to take this warp tunnel and just rotate it around the y-axis as we fly through it. That's going to look more dramatic. It's just going to give a bit of dynamism to that warp tunnel, and that's really super easy to do. So let's just take the warp tunnel, select it, and here we're going to just keyframe the rotation. Nope, what did I do there? That's not what I meant to do. I keyframe the rotation at 0 and again at 250, and just change this to 360 degrees. We'll do something like that. You can go fast if you think it wants to go faster, do it, but I hit I again, so it's keyframed. So now the tunnel will spin as we go through it. Very simple, but that's going to really look nice. Okay, so we're almost done, but I've been saving one sort of very important topic for last, which is the whole matter of the camera focal length and the effect that it has on the image. So let's just jump to our camera view here. The focal length of a camera affects how far the camera sees, but it also affects the sense you get about kind of speed and distance and stuff. So 50 millimeters here, which is what it's set to by default, is sort of the normal lens that you would get on a camera for taking photographs at home. As you go, as you change this focal length, you see the picture changes quite dramatically. So you can start sort of very sort of zoomed in or very fisheye as you come back out. So the smaller we make this, the more dramatic the speed is going to be. Let's just have a look at that. Let's set it down to about maybe 12 millimeters. And let's play our animation again now. Suddenly, it's going to seem a lot faster. That's suddenly way more dramatic than it was before. And we didn't increase the speed at all, but the sense of how fast that was has really increased. So what we might like to do is we might play with the focal length to give an impression of the whole thing speeding up and slowing down without actually speeding up and slowing down anything. So let's go back to the start to frame 1 again, and let's set the old focal length there to 50 and keyframe it. And then let's slide along till we're starting to get close to us. And maybe it'll just gone past, and then let's put it down. Let's start changing it to 12 there and keyframe that again. Hit I over that. So now we've got much more dramatic effect as it comes past us. The tunnel seems to close around, that absolutely shoots along. And then what we'd like to do maybe is just reverse that effect at the end. So as we come back out here, let's just go to about 220 and hit I again just to give us another keyframe for the focal length. And then as we go back to the end, we'll return to our 50mm focal length here at the end, which is going to give us, again, I just to keyframe it. So now let's just zoom this up so that this mostly fills this border is what's going to render out. So so we're locked to the camera. Yes, we are. Camera view and play. So I'm doing sound effects. That is embarrassing. So there we go. So that's the importance of focal length and the sense that it can give a picture is very dramatic. Somebody recently, given the times that we're in, showed a picture of a park with people in it and said, a picture can be very misleading. There were 2 versions of the picture taken with 2 very different lenses. One made it look like everybody was really piled up on top of each other, and weren't observing social distancing, and the other lens was a much different view, and in that people did appear much closer together. So you can kind of see now how by changing the focal length you can really get a very different sense of what's going on. So final step, and I know this has been long, but thank you everybody for your patience, is to render this out into a movie. So for that, let's go to the output properties panel, and let's switch from PNG to, I'm going to use FFmpeg video, and you can select your output directory there. Mine is set to temp, that's fine. And all you need to do then is go to render and say render animation, and then it will start to create the animation 1 frame at a time, and it will write an AVI file out into that folder that you picked for you to look back at. So I don't think it's not a terribly complicated scene, so I think it's probably going to render pretty fast. So I might just let it do it and we'll see the final result. And hopefully you're going to try this for yourself. I've still got a bit of a seam down the tunnel there, which isn't pretty, but running kind of down here. So by scaling that texture in a little bit more in the UV editor, we might be able to eliminate that. But it doesn't look terrible. Okay, we're coming towards the end of the tunnel now. So we should be getting to the point where the focal length is going to start to unwind. We're going to get the dramatic planet pop in. What are we on? Frame 190 now. So out of 250, that's frame 200. We're getting close to the end. Frame 210. There's the sunlight hitting the spaceship. And the focal length's done, and we've arrived. And 250. There we go. Finished rendering. All right, let's jump over here and hopefully see the end result. That should be it, I guess. Let's just check the time on it. I've got possibly some I was doing earlier. No, I think that's an old one. Is it this one? Yep, that's the one we just did. Okay, let's have a look. So obviously running at normal speed, then it's going to be a lot faster. At 25 frames a second, 250 frames is just 10 seconds long. So it's pretty short. Okay, but that's up to you. Now, folks, that was complicated, and but I hope a few of you managed to follow it. Um, Thanks a million for coming on this Blender journey with me this year. I've had a lot of fun doing it. I hope you have as well. It's been really nice. You've been a great group, um, and it's been wonderful to have you. And I hope next year things can get back to more normal type of situation, and that we will be back in the new school in Athenry, and we'll be having our sessions, and be having the crack on a Saturday. Um, but for now, for the summer, take care of yourselves. If I take the notion over the summer, you never know, I might put up a couple of things. I get bored, and you do too, probably. So, thanks again. It's been great, and talk to you when I talk to you. All right, bye.